at Prescott City Hall, where Senator John McCain is about to hold a town hall meeting.
But I'm here on a very serious subject, and I know that you are here because you want to discuss with me, particularly the issue of Syria, but immigration is also on people's minds, and there's other issues that are on people's minds. So I think that my job, and I've done this now for more than 30 years, is to spend as much time as I can when I come back from Washington with my constituents and have a discussion with them. Not to lecture, not to impose my views, but to give you one report as to the discussion that's going on in Washington, and to get your views and ideas and thoughts so that I can best represent you. Now, I also know that there are times when you don't agree with my judgment. And that's part, exactly, and that is part of the game. But I don't think, sir, that you can argue that I don't listen to the people of this state. I just had 2 town hall meetings, and I have, when I have rendered my judgment, taking into serious consideration the views of the people I represent, I have then made those decisions and stood on the ballot for the approval or disapproval of the people of my state. But a most vital part of it is this process that we are going through of a town hall meeting. And I'd just like to mention one thing, and that is that in order for us to have that discussion, and you can be as impassioned as you want to be, and as insulting as you want to be, if that makes you feel better, but please be respectful in that we don't interrupt each other. In other words, please allow, because if we start yelling, then people are not allowed to convey their views. So that's all that I ask. Now I'd like to say a few words about Syria, and then I know my Air Force friend here is very interested. I've always respected the Air Force. Actually, not a lot, but anyway, so I'll let you go first. But the situation is serious. It's of the utmost seriousness. And I'd like to start out that I know how weary people are. The war in Iraq was a terrible tragedy. 4,000 brave Americans, many thousands that have permanent injuries from that conflict. We sold that conflict to the American people as support of it, saying that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and he didn't. And Americans are still very, very unhappy about that whole conflict. And I believe that is understandable, and it has bred significant skepticism about whether the United States of America should be involved, and if so, is it going to be a slippery slope down to another involvement? I see my fellow Vietnam veteran there nodding his head in agreement. I think you would all agree with that. So that skepticism on the part of the American people and the people of Arizona, particularly since we are so heavily military-oriented and veteran-oriented, is a legitimate and I think valid concern. So let me just mention a few facts to you and why I think America's national security is involved here. First of all, if we're going to do something, it seems to me that we've got to assure the American people that there will be no American boots on the ground under any circumstances. Again, because of what happened in both Iraq and Afghanistan. But I would point out to you that this country, which in many ways is one of the really important countries in the Arab world, there's about 100% literacy, it's a cultural and moderate country, very moderate country, that would not agree to be governed by jihadists or extremists. But they've undergone some pretty horrific experiences. Right now, 20% of the Syrian population are refugees. 5% of the population of Syria has been killed or wounded. There is 1 million children who are now refugees. 1 million children. and the effect that this has had, and 100,000 people have been massacred. And so the effect of this has been an outflow of refugees into the surrounding countries, which has destabilized those countries. The King of Jordan has said, 15% of the population of Jordan is refugee. Think of what if 15% of our population were refugees, the effect that it would have on our population as well. So, and Bashar Assad's indoctrination of his people is the torture, rape, and murder. And so it's a pretty horrific thing. And some of you are thinking right now, horrific things go on in a lot of places in the world, and the United States doesn't intervene, and that's true. But if Jordan is destabilized, our best friend probably in that area, the King of Jordan says he can't last a year. If Lebanon becomes a place of sectarian violence, which it already is erupting into, and Iraq is now deteriorating in the most alarming fashion, and Shia-Sunni conflict is going on, and all of this being sponsored by Iran, as the Iranians continue with the centrifuges spinning and developing nuclear weapons, which are a direct threat to the state of Israel. They have stated that they want to wipe Israel off the map. That was the words of the Ayatollah in Iran. So it has consequences that could threaten our national security interests and the security of the state of Israel. Now, so what are our options? It seems to me it's do nothing. It seems to me the other option is to try to maybe equalize the situation on the combat between the Free Syrian Army and Bashar Assad. Every day, tons of military equipment flies into Damascus with Bashar Assad from Russia and from Iran. There's 5,000 Hezbollah. These are these Muslim extremists from southern Lebanon that are fighting to kill the Free Syrian on the side of Bashar Assad. And the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is active, and they are bringing Syrians into Iran and sending them back to be involved in the killing fields. So what has Bashar Assad done? Well, it's well documented, there's no doubt about it, that he has used small amounts of chemical weapons, sarin gas. And now, because, and I won't go into all the details, but he felt a certain area had to be cleansed of the Free Syrian Army, he used massive amounts of chemical gas. And I'm sure you saw, and horrified as all of us were, the pictures of the dead children stacked up, and the women, and we all know how horrific it is, and our hearts go out to them. So my argument is that, one, we cannot and should not in any way contemplate putting Americans in jeopardy. And by the way, we can take out Bashar Assad's assets with standoff weaponry. Israelis have done it 4 times in the last year or so, because there were weapons that were being transported to southern Lebanon for Hezbollah that were going to be used, sophisticated weapons, and the Israelis took them out with standoff weapons. And we can do that because we can act in farther enough away from the envelope of their air defenses. So it seems to me that we should get weapons to the Free Syrian Army. And I know this, people, and I can tell you that there are elements, radical elements, jihadists, Al-Qaeda, that are fighting. By the way, 2 years ago there were none. But we know how to get the weapons to the right people, and it seems to me that we should give them something with which to fight with. And hopefully that they will then be able to counter the tanks and artillery and aircraft that Bashar Assad has. Second of all, I think we should take out their runways and their air and their maintenance and their fuel so that it negates their air capability. Now, President of the United States has said recently that, well, we want, quote, shot across the bow. I'm not sure that that does much, to tell you the truth. And we want a negotiated settlement. Yes, we want a negotiated settlement. And the way you get that is that if the Free Syrian Army can have the advantage on the battlefield, then there can be a negotiated settlement with Bashar Assad to lead. So I've probably talked too long, but I think I'm trying to depict to you the situation as I see. But I also finally would say, if we do nothing, and the President of the United States has said that what he did, that he's going to act, and then doesn't act, you can imagine the lesson that Iran and other countries take when the president of the most powerful nation in the world says that he's going to take action and doesn't. My colleagues in the Senate, my colleagues in the House share your skepticism. And the president, I think, realizes that because this morning he said he's going to go on national television on Tuesday. I hope that the President of the United States, that we will respect the President of the United States because we respect the institution of the presidency of the United States, and that we will listen to him. But I believe that his message has got to be more than just tell Bashar Assad not to use chemical weapons anymore. Those chemical weapons killed 1,000 people. Bashar Assad has already massacred 100,000 people using other weapons as well. So with that, and I'm glad that I know that some of you are eager to discuss the issue of immigration reform as well, another non-controversial subject here in Prescott. And I'd be glad to discuss that and the prospects for it as well. If you'd like to come in a little more here, can they come in a little more often? You haven't missed a thing. Please, you can come in a little further if you want to, since there's people behind you. Thank you. So, first question goes to the United States Air Force.
My name is Dominic Nigger, and we have one thing in common, we're the same age.
Yeah, a little closer.
Here's, I think, the big issue.
I think you got it covered.
Okay, you're asking us, Senator, with due respect to you, and I have a great deal of respect for you. I know your history. You served basically during the same period of time. Certainly, my career was not up to yours. I was a lowly enlisted man, a master sergeant, but I ended up as a CEO.
That's the brain saying leadership.
We did the job. I kept you in the air. I turned the wrenches. Okay. I was the CEO of a small defense company in California that supplied every major propeller shaft bearing to the Aegis, the DDGs, the LHDs, the AOEs, the Titans. I'm not an anti-war person. I'm an ex-military man. I understand there's evil in this world. But you're asking us, sir, to support probably one of the most incompetent people that we've had running this country. Now, I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. I'm just going by logic and history. And it's just one of those things. The man has decimated our military. I mean, really decimated it through these social programs, which I know we need to have. We need to support and pull people up. And I've come to a conclusion. I said to my wife the other day, you know, I just made up a new slogan for this president. I didn't say what I said. I did not say what I said. That's this red line comment. He goes back. He flip-flops. He does it constantly. And we're expected to support this man and his administration? Oh, my God, Senator. This is not a good situation. That's why most of us are in here. I did a survey in my neighborhood this morning before I came up here. I've got people whose two sons in the SEALs, of all things. Two solid young men, probably the best of the best. And they're saying, Dominic, this is not right. Because they've seen, and you and I, Korea, Vietnam, we lost 50,000 young men. We lost 250,000 wounded. I walked the halls of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Hospital when I was being mustered out. Military transport came in. There was a young lieutenant and a young sergeant sitting in the same room, no legs. And we see this over and over again. We got Iraq, we got Afghanistan. What have we accomplished? These people are fanatics in their beliefs. They're going to go on to killing on each other when we leave. You know that, and I know it. And now we're going to go into Syria and help people who are totally against us. And that's why most of us are against this situation. And we got to have an end game. What are we going to do? How are we going to get that sarin gas? It's probably going to be moved over to Iran. We probably should be looking at Iran closer than we're looking at Syria. They're the real danger. Because when they get a nuclear weapon, we're in big trouble. That's all I have to say, sir, and I hope you think it through. Please. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service as a Master Sergeant. Everything I ever learned about leadership, I learned from the Chief Petty Officer. So I thank you for your service. And I think that there's validity to everything you stated. I would say that if now that the President of the United States is not, after saying that the United States is going to act, doesn't, then again, I wonder about that message that is being sent. As far as Afghanistan is concerned, I don't want to revisit history too much with you, but I think it's clear why we went to Afghanistan. We know that Al-Qaeda and attacks of 9/11 took place from people that were trained and came from Afghanistan, and we said that those people had to be rid of, or we would have to go after them. I think that now, whether it was handled right or not, but as far as Iraq is concerned, I think, as you know, it was based on the premise that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and those have not appeared yet. And so, when I tell you that he has used gas, chemicals, then obviously you want to see the proof. Because the Secretary of State of the United States of America said to the world that he did have it. So your cynicism, skepticism, not cynicism, skepticism, I think is well-founded. Now I see another unhappy Vietnam veteran back there, so I'd like to give him the microphone too. This is Veterans Day.
I don't think I'm going to need this because I'll just use it. Senator McCain, my name is Noel Campbell. Unlike you, I'm a Vietnam veteran. I was a Navy pilot. I flew combat Vietnam. And I think...
Better than I was.
Well, just luckier, sir. Just luckier. The Vietnam experience plays into a lot here. I remember the Tonkin Gulf Resolution. And I remember we're not going to send American boys to fight for Asian boys, LBJ. I remember that. And I remember we got involved in Vietnam, and I remember the 58,000 who died. Your friends and my friends. Okay? Now we fast forward to two loser wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. The same scenario. And now we're being asked to get involved into Syria by an act of war. If you fire Scud missiles into that country, that is an act of war. And if we're going to go to war, we need the Congress of the United States to declare war. No more of this presidential war making. And that's how I feel about that.
The Prime Minister 2 days ago said, in case of when the United States taking action against Syria, quote, Israel can take care of itself. And I can assure you, the United States of America can take care of itself. That's why your tax dollars have been
wasted.
sometimes, some of it.
Excuse me.
Some of it. Now, can we need another woman. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Given the fact that wars cost billions of dollars and kill people, and the fact that there's a 2-digit unemployment rate in America's inner cities among black-skinned people like President Obama, and increasing use of food stamps, strongly encouraged by the president, government-run schools that are more concerned with promoting anti-Christian beliefs and values and the brainwashing of our precious children to have slave-like mentality, the aborting of millions of helpless babies by Planned Parenthood. Why don't you and the Gang of Eight apply the same warlike vengeance and effort to dismantle the Department of Education, remove government regulations that inhibit economical progress, stop giving illegal alien citizenship so they can vote for a dictator in America, and stop the crimes perpetrated by often skilless invaders, and let my people and all American citizens thrive.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and you make many valid points. In fact, some of those would have happened if you had voted for me for President of the United States.
I had a big sign in my yard.
I thank you,
John McCain.
and I'm grateful. I really am. By the way, after I lost, I slept like a baby. Sleep 2 hours, wake up and cry. Could I say you make a very important point? You really do. In all seriousness, your points are very well made. And we have obligations in our society, and we have still millions of Americans. Everybody celebrated today that the unemployment rate's only down to 7.3%, not counting those millions of Americans who have become so discouraged that they've stopped looking for work. We have a lot to do in America, I agree with you. But also I would remind you, one thing about America is that we do what we can to prevent tragedies in other places in the world. There are 1 million children now, Syrian children, that are refugees. There are these refugee camps, you have to see them to believe how horrible they are, how terrible they are. The conditions are just incredibly bad.
Sir, the Saudis have plenty of money.
And what's that?
The Saudis have plenty of money to take care of those people. It's not our responsibility.
It's not a matter, sir, of our responsibility. Because let me respond to you, sir. The fact is, these people are flooding out, and no amount of money it takes care of them. They're coming out by the thousands, and there's no country that can take that many people, not even the United States of America, with all the Saudi money. It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of these people.
Syria going to make a place for them?
What's that?
How is bombing Syria going to make a place
Maybe
for
it
them?
stops the flow of refugees. You think about that? You don't care about these people, that's fine with me, ma'am.
That's pretty
Yes,
insulting
Yes,
to
it is.
assume
It
that.
certainly is.
Where do you come off assuming that?
Hi,
What
Mr.
do you
McCain.
say?
I mean this with all due respect, sir, as elected officials for our country. We the people elected you to be representatives of the people and against this and for this great nation. But for far too long now, the rest of Congress, including the executive branch of government, along with the judicial and legislative, have turned your back on the American people and their core values and principles. I can say with great confidence and speak on behalf of all Americans that your actions against this country are treasonous.
Yes.
All of you, against the will of the American people, have aided and abetted the enemy. You and the rest of Congress, including the President of the United States, have went against the will of your people in Syria, regardless of your position and vote, whether it is a yes or no. It's still a political smokescreen, I believe. Wholeheartedly, you do not care about the will and well-being of America or its people. You lied to the American people about the chemical attacks in Syria. The American people know that it was our government that is most likely responsible. There is strong evidence, including video, that these attacks were carried out by Al-Qaeda, and you advocate starting a war, even maybe world war, by taking the same attack and blaming it on Assad. President Barack Hussein Obama has been supporting terrorism. The United States has been funding and aiding organizations, including including the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda for many years now. The same enemy we're supposed to be defeating on the battlefield. At least one country in this world stood up against this government terrorism that you guys support in Egypt. The people of Egypt throughout Mohammed Morsi, which Obama supported as well, as countless Christians have lost their lives under evil people such as this. You swore an oath to protect us and protect from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. The simple irony is the domestic enemy now in this country is the people and government of the United States. And McCain and you and the rest of their leaders are accountable for their actions. It's too bad someone like me is not in office to hold you accountable. Because if I was in a position of power or authority, I would have you all arrested and tried for treason against my country under the grounds of 18 U.S.C. 2381 Treason U.S. Code. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason. That is the code. The American people are sick of it. This country rose up against you recently. And ratio, hang on, I have a right of free speech, I haven't finished. The American people opposed the going to war with Syria, which includes many Marines and other veterans by the thousands, was 499 to 1. That is 99% of the people of this country. So if you and the rest of this government are truly for the American people and representatives of us, I suggest this time you listen, because nobody wants another war or strike in Syria or anywhere else. Bring our brothers and sisters home. I am truly disgusted that you people are my leaders.
Thank you.
Well, sir, I look forward to you running for office. Nobody's preventing you from that, even in this treasonous country. Register, I don't know if you're registered to vote or not, and run for office, and we'll be glad to put you up for the voters and have their opinion. I put myself up to voters now 8 times, and except for deviation on the way to the White House, they have approved of my performance, and I understand that there's a great deal of controversy about some issues. But honestly, sir, when you say that we are guilty of treason, that is something that, frankly, I can't dignify with a response. I can't.
Fight a civil war without Al-Qaeda.
Well, I can't respond to a charge like that because it would be beneath me. So, could I ask?
We're all beneath you.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak. My name is Raid Dalbe. I'm Syrian American. My name is Raid Dalbe. I'm Syrian American. I was in Syria when the revolution broke out in 2011. I was arrested and almost tortured to death. I have lost 7 of my cousins. 7 of my cousins were killed by the Assad militias, and I have 4 of my relatives missing, potentially killed, unfortunately. 3 of my cousins were tortured to death. Imagine somebody will get detained, and 20 days after, they will give you a call to come and take his stuff and take the body, you know, all blue and all bruises from top to bottom. I just need to mention very quick a couple of the things that the gentleman, mentioned here. God knows that I agree with you, and I understand that the U.S. is very, very tired of intervening here and there. But the Syrian issue is completely different. Okay? Now, nobody likes war. We don't like war. But I need to remind everybody that without the war that U.S. stood up for in the Second World War, the Nazis would have been leading the whole Europe and maybe the world. Sometimes you need to force the war in order to accomplish a peace. Okay? And those dictatorships, the only language that they understand is the war. Without the war, in 1991, in the Second World War, in the Gulf, Saddam Hussein would have been occupying Kuwait up until now. And without the war that U.S., the land of the free, that had stood up for in Bosnia, the massacre would have been taking place up until this second. We hate the war. We don't like the war, but sometimes, for those tyrants, the only language they understand is the force. I don't like to see my country, getting striked, but And I know that a lot of civilians might die in this, strike. It happened, and I wish that it happened today before tomorrow. Believe me, I will take my chances. I would love to take my chances in the collateral damage. If there's military bases and military airports that have killed over 100,000 people of my country will get destroyed and stop the massacre. I need to tell everybody that more than 300,000 people have been killed in Syria so far. The 100,000 that everybody's talking about, this is the registered number in the UN. This is the number of the people who are registered by name. I have 4 of my relatives missing already, potentially killed. The number is way bigger than that. And as far as the fear of Al-Qaeda, I need to tell everybody, because some people are saying that we don't need al-Assad to go because we don't need Al-Qaeda to stop. If al-Assad continues in his massacre, then Al-Qaeda's influence will get bigger and bigger. This is the truth. Because the more the country gets dismantled, okay, the more Al-Qaeda influence will happen. Why Al-Qaeda is so active in Afghanistan? Why Al-Qaeda is so active in Iraq? Because the country is completely dismantled. Those people came from all over because Bashar al-Assad has launched all-out assault on the people.
Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
Okay. So what I need to say is the longer this conflict goes, the more Al-Qaeda will get into Syria. We don't like Al-Qaeda. We don't need them. We are fighting them already in the northeast of Syria.
Thank you.
We are fighting them already in the only liberated city in Syria, which is called Raqqa. They don't belong there.
Thank
okay?
you.
Please meet.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry.
The lady right behind.
First of all, let me give you a great round of applause. This represents how the American people feel about
Senator Ted Cruz said yesterday out of Texas that we should not act as Al-Qaeda's air force. The Al-Nusra Front is fighting alongside the Free Syrian Army, which is directly linked to Al-Qaeda. Why was the United States fighting against Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, but now fighting alongside them in Syria?
Because your statement is totally false. Your statement could not be more
That
false.
isn't false.
Yes,
That's
it's
been
totally false.
documented.
No, your statement is false. So if you want to say that it's not, I'm entitled to say your statement is false. I've been in Syria. You've been in Syria? No,
I have not.
You have not.
But it's also clear that the American people overwhelmingly do not support a war in Syria.
Your question,
Our research
your
said
statement,
91% of Americans do not support it.
Your statement was false, so I don't have any response to a false statement. Go ahead.
So, with all the opposition you've had in the last 2 days, how much impact will that have on your survival?
It has great impact, just as every decision that I've made. That's why I travel around the state and go to town hall meetings. That's why I've been having town hall meetings for 30 years. Do you think that I do it because I need the exercise? It's a stupid question.
Senator, what is the difference between your position and the president's position at this point as we get closer to this vote?
It's my understanding that the president is very reluctant to, in my view, has not placed sufficient emphasis on the need to change momentum so that there will be a negotiations settlement of the conflict which will lead to Bashar Assad's departure. That has to be, in my view, a fundamental part of the strategy that we employ. Enough momentum that Bashar Assad is convinced that he can't succeed, and that then negotiated settlement so that he departs and the Syrian people have a chance to have a democracy. It's going to be very difficult, but they can do that.
Have you discussed this difference with the president or the executive branch, and where is that conversation going?
In case you missed it, I was in the White House with the president for 2 hours recently. So yes, we did discuss it. We didn't talk about the wedding.
What evidence do we have?
I have no more answers for you.
Senator, if the resolution does not pass Congress, do you think that the president will just continue with his plan?
I don't know. I really don't know. The president was asked that this morning, and he did not choose to answer, so I don't know.
What do you think the president's judgment on how to pick good and evil in Syria when you yourself were photographed? How do we trust your judgment?
Who are you with?
In the evil
Who are you with? Who are you with?
NBC.
NBC?
Yes, sir.
And you think that I was photographed with someone because it appeared in an Al-Qaeda newspaper in Lebanon?
It appeared in the Guardian newspaper.
No, it
Obviously
appeared,
know what I'm
appeared
talking
first.
about.
No, it
How are
appeared.
we supposed to trust your judgment if
here
because
with known
they can,
terrorists.
I have never had anything to do with known terrorists, and I'm offended by your question.
Senator, some people believe that there will never be peace in the Middle East. Do you think we should?
Some people believe that, and I think that it's also that there was peace in the Middle East for a long period of time, and I believe that there can be peace in the Middle East, but it's a very difficult situation now. The Arab Spring has complicated things a great deal, but dictators have been overthrown, and there are struggles toward democracy, but it's a very difficult time. The Arab world is undergoing an upheaval unprecedented since the fall of the Ottoman Empire. And how all this is sorted out and how other nations play in this scenario is a very difficult and complicated situation.
How do you feel about the UN's role in all of this?
It's been, as usual, non-involvement.
Senator, do you think this could be a catalyst
because of the Russian and Chinese veto? There have been resolutions in the Security Council on Syria, and the Russians vetoed. Russians and Chinese just vetoed it.
Do you think
Senator,
this could be a
obviously
catalyst?
you are held in extremely high regard by the people who fill this room today. Are you surprised at the pushback on your stand in supporting the president against Syria?
No, I've been traveling all over the state, and we get phone calls and letters. And no, there's great concern, and a lot of it has to do with Iraq, and it's understandable. And it's my job to come and discuss things with the people of Arizona, just as I've done for 30 years.
Do you feel that you changed any minds today?
I engaged in a discussion and debate. I think people listen to me, so I don't know if I changed any minds or not, but I think they leave better informed.
Did they change your mind?
They reinforced in my mind the skepticism and concern that people have about us getting on another situation such as Iraq. That's certainly reinforced in my mind.
Well, as you heard the senator say, Congress reconvenes on Monday. The president's scheduled to give an address Tuesday night to the public. The debate continues. I'm Jeff Demand, reporting in Prescott, Arizona.